I want you to do something for me right now. It's a visualization exercise, but stick with me because it really changes the way you look at the ceiling when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah, it definitely shifts the perspective.
It does. So imagine a perfect circle, a clean, closed loop. And this circle represents your entire existence. Every sunrise you will ever watch, every meal you'll ever taste, every time you fall in love, every time you get your heart broken, and every bored Tuesday afternoon.
It's the container for literally everything.
Exactly. Now, standard optimism and the actuarial tables, I guess,
Yeah.
so you get about 80 years in that circle. And when you say 80 years out loud, it feels massive. It feels like an infinite runway.
It's comforting.
Very comforting.
It creates this buffer. It's actually the psychological basis for procrastination. We feel like we have this vast reservoir of time. So wasting a day or a week or even a whole year feels totally negligible. It's like tossing a penny into the ocean. You don't think it affects the water level at all.
Right. We operate with this background assumption of total abundance. We say things like, oh, I'll write that book eventually, or I'll travel when things settle down.
Always when things settle down.
Always. But we have a stack of research for this deep dive today. Philosophical treatises, behavioral economics, and some, frankly, terrifying math that completely dismantles that safety net.
Yeah, we are going to look at data on lifespan allocation, the existential philosophy of Ernest Becker, and some brutal economic theory applied to the human condition. And the math.
The math is terrifying.
The terrifying is really the only word for it.
It is. We are going to walk through a calculation today that proves, statistically, that most of us are completely delusional about how much time we actually have left.
And we aren't just trying to scare you here. The goal isn't existential dread, it's clarity.
Precisely. The mission for this deep dive is simple but heavy. We are going to audit your life. We are going to find out exactly how much discretionary time a human being actually gets, and then we're going to talk about why we are so spectacularly bad at spending it.
And just to set the expectations right out of the gate, this isn't about productivity hacks. We aren't going to tell you how to answer your emails faster.
Please no.
Right. We're looking at the fundamental difference between a life that compounds into something meaningful and a life that just evaporates.
Let's start with the breakdown. This is the 80-year life calculation that honestly shook me when I first reviewed the source material. You start with 80 years. That is the growth income of your life.
The top line revenue.
Right. But as anyone who pays taxes knows, growth income is not what you get to keep. We need to look at the net.
Because life has overhead, significant overhead. And the very first tax is biology. You have to sleep.
And if we assume a healthy 8 hours, which, let's be honest, is aspirational for a lot of us, but let's go with the recommended amount, that is roughly 1/3 of the circle gone immediately.
That's 27 years.
27 years.
You spend 27 years in a state of literal unconsciousness. It is necessary for survival, obviously. You go insane and die without it. But in terms of lived experience, in terms of conscious agency, it is zero. It is time that simply does not exist for you.
Okay, so the bank account drops from 80 to 53. That's a massive hit right out of the gate. Now, you have to survive in a modern capitalist society. You have to work.
The data averages this out to about 11 cumulative years of pure labor. Now, I know people are probably screaming at their speakers right now going, I work way more than that.
I definitely feel like I work more than that.
And you probably do. But even at a conservative estimate of 11 full, 24-hour, 365-day years, we aren't talking about the years you spent at the office. We're talking about the net hours of continuous labor clumped together.
And let's be real, that 11 years is often time where you are renting out your consciousness to someone else. You aren't doing what you want. You're doing what the spreadsheet wants. So we're down to 42 years. But you can't just spawn into the world and start working. You have to learn to be a human first. School, education, training.
Which is roughly 3 years of cumulative, 247 time. That's K through 12, maybe university, maybe a trade school. It's the loading phase of the human software.
Then there's the biological maintenance. Eating. Cooking. The source says this accounts for about 6 years, which at first felt high to me, but when you break it down...
It sounds high until you do the math. Think about it, 3 meals a day. The preparation, the actual eating, the cleanup, the grocery shopping. Over 80 years, that is 6 full years of your life just processing calories to keep the machine running.
6 years of chewing and doing dishes. That is deeply humbling.
Okay.
Then there's the friction of movement, commuting, traffic.
That's another 5 years. 5 years. Imagine staring at the bumper of a Toyota Camry for 5 straight years. That is the statistical reality of the modern commute.
We are bleeding out here. We haven't even touched the admin yet.
The administrative bullshit of existence. This is the silent killer. This is standing in line at the DMV. This is being on hold with the cable company because they overcharged you by $12. This is paying bills, updating your phone software, renewing registrations. That burns about 4 years.
4 years of pure bureaucracy. Then personal care. Showering, brushing your teeth, laundry.
Another 3 years. You have to groom the animal. You have to wash the clothes. It's totally non-negotiable.
Plus, we have to account for the very beginning. You spent the first 3 years of your life as a toddler. You were conscious, technically, but you had absolutely no agency. You were just a passenger in a diaper. You don't remember it, and you couldn't control it.
Right. You don't own that time. And then, statistically, looking at global health data, you will spend about a year of your life sick in bed. Flu, colds, recovery. And this is the one that always gets a laugh but is statistically rigid. You will spend about 1 full year of your life on the toilet.
Okay, so let's look at the balance sheet. This is the moment of truth. We started with 80. We subtracted sleep, work, school, eating, commuting, admin, chores, childhood, sickness, and the bathroom. What is the bottom line?
When you run that calculation, stripping away every single biological necessity and societal obligation, you are left with less than 15 years.
15 years.
That's it. That is your discretionary budget. That is the time you actually get to choose what to do with. Everything else is spoken for. Everything else is just a tax you pay to exist.
That completely recontextualizes everything. I look back at the last decade and I think about how many hours I spent doom scrolling or watching shows I didn't even really like just because they were on, or arguing with strangers on the internet. If I have an 80-year supply, that waste feels negligible. Oh, it's just a Tuesday. But if I only have a 15-year supply, I'm torching my inventory.
That's the aha moment right there. Scarcity drives value. If you realized you only had $15 in your pocket, you wouldn't throw pennies into a sewer grate. You would be incredibly careful. But because we masked the scarcity with this 80-year illusion, we spend our time like billionaires when we're actually paupers.
This leads us directly to the core economic argument in the research. Time is the ultimate currency. We hear time is money all the time, but the sources argue that's actually a backward equation.
It is completely backward. In economics, we have the scarcity principle. Value is a function of rarity. Air is vital. You die in 3 minutes without it, but it's free because it's abundant. Gold is effectively useless for survival, but it's expensive because it's rare. We treat money as the scarce resource and time as the abundant one. We hoard the money and we just spend the time.
We trade hours for dollars. That's the fundamental transaction of employment. I give you my Tuesday, you give me a paycheck.
But the reality is that money is just a derivative of time. Money is simply a stored representation of the time you used to acquire it. Health is a derivative of time. It's the result of time spent exercising or sleeping. Relationships are just the aggregated quality of time shared.
So time is the raw material. It's the base layer. Without time, you can't mine any other value. You can't have health, wealth, or love without the initial investment of time.
Precisely. And the best way to prove this, to prove that time is infinitely more valuable than money, is the Warren Buffett thought experiment. This strips away all the abstraction.
I love this one. Walk us through it.
Okay, so picture Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors in history. As of the data we're looking at, let's say he's roughly 95 years old. His net worth is somewhere in the ballpark of $146 billion.
Which is an amount of money that is functionally impossible to spend. You could buy countries, you could buy sports leagues, you have total financial omnipotence.
Right. So here's the offer. I have a magic button. You can press it and you become Warren Buffett. You get the $146 billion, you get the fame, the access, the private jets, the ability to move global markets with a whisper. You are the Oracle of Omaha. But there is a condition. You have to be 95 years old. You have his body, his mortality, his exact timeline. You are at the very end of the reel.
Wow.
Or you can be 20 years old. You are broke. You're totally anonymous. You're eating instant ramen in a basement apartment with 3 roommates. You have 0 status. You have student debt. But you have your entire life ahead of you. You have the full potential of the circle.
The question is, would Warren Buffett make the trade?
And the answer universally is yes. He would do it in a heartbeat. He would incinerate $146 billion just to be the broke 20-year-old. He would get up the empire, the jets, the legacy, just to have the ability to run up a flight of stairs and have 60 years of possibility ahead of him.
That is a staggering realization. The thing we are killing ourselves to get, the wealth, the number in the bank account, is the exact thing the billionaire would give up just to be in our position.
Because he understands the math we just did. He knows that no amount of capital can buy a 16th year of discretionary time if the biology runs out. The asset he envies is the time, not the money.
It really highlights the wisdom of age. We usually think wisdom is some magical property that just appears with gray hair, but the source makes a really practical point here. Wisdom is just data analysis.
Exactly. It's pattern recognition over a much longer data set. When you're young, your data set is small. You prioritize the immediate signal. The source uses this hilarious example of a young guy trying to get a photo with hot girls on a boat. He's spending immense energy, money, and time to curate this specific image. He thinks, if I get this photo, I win. People will think I'm cool.
I mean, we've all been there. Maybe not the boat specifically, but doing things purely for the signal. Look at me living my best life. We optimize for the story, not the actual experience.
Right. And an older person looks at that and thinks, what a tragic waste. Not because they're grumpy or because they just don't get it. It's because they have run the simulation. They know the return on investment for that activity is literally zero.
It's vanity metrics versus actual revenue, to put it in business terms. The older person knows that the status you get from the boat photo evaporates in 24 hours, but the time you spent chasing it is gone forever.
Yes. Wisdom is simply the ability to accurately price the value of time. The tragedy is that we usually only acquire that pricing model when we have no inventory left to sell.
So if we accept that time is the true scarcity, if we accept that the 15 years is all we really have, why do we keep making these bad trades? Why do we voluntarily give up our time for things that don't matter? The notes refer to this as the trap of false optimization.
This is a huge concept. Humans are optimizing machines. We love efficiency. We love getting a good deal. But we are almost always optimizing for the wrong variables. We optimize for comfort, status, or nominal income, often at the direct expense of time.
The classic example here is the better job. I think everyone listening has faced this choice, or at least fantasized about it.
Let's run the scenario. You're offered a new role. It pays 15% more than you make now. On a spreadsheet, strictly looking at the currency of money, you are 15% richer. Your brain says, success, I am progressing. You take the job.
But the catch, and there's always a catch, is the commute.
Right. Let's say the new office is further away. It adds 30 minutes each way to your drive. Now, your brain says, it's just 30 minutes. I can listen to audiobooks. It's fine. But let's do the math on the currency of time. An hour a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year. That is 250 hours.
That's more than 10 full 24-hour days.
You are deleting 10 days of your life every single year to sit in a metal box. And the research on happiness, specifically the hedonic adaptation curve, shows that once your basic needs are met, a 15% raise has almost zero impact on your long-term happiness. You get used to the money in about 3 months.
But the commute. You never get used to the commute.
Never. The research is completely clear on this. Commuting is active misery. It spikes your cortisol. It degrades social connection because you're too tired to see friends when you get home. It is anti-life. So you have optimized for a number on a screen, your salary, and de-optimized your actual lived experience. You made a bad trade. You sold 10 days of your 15-year budget for a slightly nicer car to sit in traffic in.
We see this with housing, too. The dream home in the suburbs. The American dream.
The bigger house trap. This is a classic false optimization. You live in an apartment or a small house. You think, if I had more space, I'd be happy. So you move further out to get more square footage. Now you have a guest room, a formal dining room, a big lawn.
But you also have more roof to repair, more lawn to mow, more rooms to clean that you don't even sit in.
And you're paying for the privilege. You are paying money to lose time. The estimates suggest maintaining a large suburban home consumes about 20 hours a year, just in-house friction, waiting for contractors, fixing leaks, managing the space, cleaning gutters.
So you moved to get more space for your life. But the maintenance of that space is eating the life you wanted to live there.
Exactly. You become a janitor for your own mortgage.
There's one more category of false optimization that really hit me, because it's emotional, not financial. Relationship inertia.
This is the most tragic one. Think about how people treat the cost of dating. I hear this all the time. People complain endlessly about the apps, going on first dates, the small talk. They view it as a massive time tax. I wasted 2 hours at a coffee shop with this person, and there's no spark.
It feels like a grind. I don't have time for this. I should be working. I should be at the gym.
But those same people, the ones terrified of wasting 2 hours on a coffee date, will stay in a mediocre, dead-end relationship for 2, 3, 4 years.
Because it's comfortable. Because breaking up is hard.
Exactly. They are optimizing for comfort. They are avoiding the short-term pain of a breakup. avoiding the loneliness of being single for a few months. But the cost. They are spending 20% of their entire 15-year discretionary budget on the wrong person. They're worried about wasting an evening, but they aren't worried about wasting a decade.
That perspective is brutal. We penny pinch minutes, but we light years on fire.
It's a complete failure of risk assessment. We are terrified of the acute pain of change, but we are perfectly tolerant of the chronic pain of a wasted life.
Okay, so if comfort, status, and salary are the wrong variables, if those are the traps, what are the right variables? How do we determine what is actually valuable? This is where the deep dive takes a turn into the deep end of the pool. We need to talk about Ernest Becker.
Ernest Becker. If you haven't read The Denial of Death, put it on your list. But be warned, it is not a light beach read. It is one of those books that permanently changes your operating system. Becker was a professor at UCSF in the 50s, a total renegade.
The sources describe him as a real iconoclast. He was teaching anthropology and philosophy classes, psychology and anthropology classes. He just refused to stay in his lane. He annoyed the administration constantly.
He was trying to build a unified theory of human behavior. He wanted to know why we do what we do. Why do we build skyscrapers? Why do we write symphonies? Why do we start wars? And the tragedy, which really fueled the urgency of his work, was that he was dying. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer at a young age. He wrote his masterpiece while literally looking into the abyss.
So this wasn't theoretical for him. He wasn't sitting in an ivory tower musing about mortality. He was facing it head on.
No, it was intensely urgent. And his core thesis was this: humans are unique because we are the only animals who know we're going to die. A dog doesn't know it's mortal, it just lives in the now. But we have the cognitive capacity to see the future, and we see that the future ends. That knowledge creates a deep subconscious terror.
And to cope with that terror, we can't just curl up in a ball and stop functioning. So we build what he called immortality projects.
Right. Since our physical bodies are doomed to decay, since we know the biology eventually fails, we try to create things that will outlast us. We try to attach ourselves to something eternal. We try to prove that we are not just meat, that we are meaningful.
This can be very literal, like a pharaoh building a pyramid to last 10,000 years.
Or a billionaire putting their name on a hospital wing. But for most of us, it's a lot subtler. It's writing a book. It's raising a child who carries your values forward. It's contributing to a community or a cause. Becker argued that meaning is just the measurement of how likely something is to survive your physical death.
This brings up the concept of the two deaths. I've heard this before, but in this context, it really hits different.
It's an ancient idea found in a lot of different cultures. You die twice. Once when your heart stops, and again when the last person on earth says your name or remembers who you were.
So Becker's point is that a meaningful life is just a collection of activities designed to delay that second death.
Exactly. We are trying to buy immortality through our actions. We want to echo.
This explains the Counter-Strike paradox mentioned in the source material. This resonated with me because I've definitely fallen into gaming holes where nothing else existed.
It's a perfect modern example of a false immortality project. You can spend 5,000 hours playing Counter-Strike. You can grind. You can become an elite player, ranked top 20,000 in the world. In the moment, it feels incredibly important. The stakes feel high. Your palms are sweating. You feel like a hero.
The dopamine is incredibly real. You feel like you are achieving something tangible.
But eventually it feels empty. Why?
Because you can't take it with you.
And more importantly, it leaves no residue. When you die, your kill-death ratio doesn't continue to generate value for the world. It vanishes when the server resets. It is a closed-loop activity. It consumes time, but it produces no legacy.
Whereas raising a child or building a business or mentoring someone, that's an open loop. It continues without you. The child grows up and teaches their children. The business employs people who feed their families.
Exactly. That is the filter Becker gives us. Does this activity have the potential to transcend me? If the answer is no, it might be fun, it might be relaxing, and that's fine in moderation, but it will never be deeply fulfilling. It will never solve the existential problem of death.
This brings us to the most practical framework of the deep dive. We've talked about the problem, the scarcity, we've talked about the philosophy, the transcendence. Now let's talk about the mechanics. How do we actually spend the 15 years? The source introduces the concept of compounding versus anti-compounding experiences.
This is where we apply financial logic to life decisions. In finance, we all understand compound interest. You invest $1, it earns 10%, now you have $1.10 earning 10%, it grows exponentially. Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world.
The argument here is that actions have interest rates too.
Yes. A compounding experience is anything that makes your future self better or your future experiences richer. Think of it as a philosophical retirement account. You're depositing value that grows.
Let's get granular with this. Give me some examples of high-interest life activities.
Health is the most obvious one. Going to the gym today sucks. It costs time and energy. It hurts. But it increases your energy capacity for tomorrow. It extends your lifespan, the actual size of your circle. It improves your mood. It compounds.
Knowledge is another one.
Huge. Learning a language or a skill like coding or even just learning how to cook. At first, it's just struggle. It's pure friction. But once you know it, it opens doors. Learning Spanish allows you to travel to 20 countries and have conversations you couldn't have had before. Every book you read gives you a new lens to see the next book through. Knowledge stacks.
And relationships.
This is what people mess up a lot. They think hanging out with friends is just burning time. But a deep conversation with a friend creates a shared history. The next time you see them, you don't start at zero. You start at the level of that bond. A 20-year friendship is an asset that pays massive emotional dividends that a stranger just cannot replicate. You have shorthand. You have deep trust. That is compounded interest.
There's a beautiful quote from Pablo Picasso in the notes that ties us back to Becker. The purpose of life is to find your gift. The meaning of life is to give it away.
That is the ultimate compounding. You build the value, you find the gift, and then you let it transcend you. You give it away. That is how you cheat the second death.
But then we have the dark side. Anti-compounding behaviors.
These are the wealth destroyers.
Yeah.
These are activities where the marginal utility curve actually inverts. The more you do them, the worse you feel.
The video game curve is the best visualization of this. And again, no shade to gamers, but we all know the exact feeling.
Walk us through it.
Okay, hour 1 of a game, amazing, 10 out of 10 fun, you're engaged. Hour 3, still pretty good, maybe a 7 out of 10. But by hour 14, it's 4 a.m., your eyes are dry, your back hurts, you're eating junk food, and you feel a deep, gnawing sense of self-loathing.
The value has gone completely negative. You are paying time to purchase misery. That is anti-compounding. You aren't building a skill. You're actually degrading your health and frying your dopamine receptors. You are borrowing happiness from tomorrow to numb yourself today.
Status games are another form of this. The fashion loop.
Oh, the douche canoe shoes example from the text. This is a classic. You buy a luxury item, say a $5,000 watch to impress your coworkers.
You get a huge hit of validation on day 1. Nice watch. You feel like the man.
But by day 3, nobody cares. They are thinking about their own lives. They're worrying about their own commute. So now the watch is just a heavy thing on your wrist that tells the exact same time as your phone. To get that feeling back, you have to buy something else. And something else.
You're digging a hole.
You end up broke with a closet full of depreciating assets, realizing you spent your limited time earning money to impress people who, as the source brutalizes, weren't thinking about you to begin with. That is an anti-compounding spiral.
And this leads us to the mechanism of addiction. The notes reference Andrew Huberman here, and his definition of addiction is fascinating. It's not just about chemicals. It's about the architecture of joy.
Huberman defines addiction as a progressive narrowing of the things that bring you pleasure.
A narrowing. That's a really powerful image.
Think about a healthy life. You get joy from a wide spectrum. A sunrise, a good cup of coffee, a book, a run, a conversation, a project. Your joy surface area is huge. You are robust.
But when you enter an anti-compounding loop, drugs, gambling, doom scrolling, porn, what happens?
The biology physically changes. Your dopamine threshold spikes. Suddenly, the sunrise doesn't register at all. It's too subtle. The book is boring. The run feels like pure torture. The only thing that breaks through the numbness is the addiction.
Your world shrinks.
It shrinks down to a tiny, dark tunnel containing only you and the thing. Good uses of time widen your world. Bad uses narrow it. That is the ultimate litmus test. If you are doing something that makes the rest of the world look gray, you are in a trap.
To really ground this, the source material shares a case study that I think a lot of people will relate to, or at least envy on the surface. It's the story of the digital nomad.
Yes. This comes from the writer's personal experience. It's 2009. He packs a laptop and hits the road. Argentina. The goal is the good life.
It sounds like the ultimate Instagram dream. Fatoka boliches, which I learned is slang for these wild late-night clubs. Girls, steak, wine, constant travel. He visits 50 countries in 2 years. He is living the bucket list.
On paper, he is totally winning. He is maximizing novelty. He is consuming the world. But what was the actual result?
He crashed.
He hit the wall of anti-compounding. See, the first party in Buenos Aires was life-changing. It was new. Novelty is a drug, but novelty has a half-life. By the 50th country, he said the temples and the beaches all started to look drab and repetitive.
Hedonic treadmill.
Exactly. To get the same high of travel, he had to do crazier and crazier things. But he realized he wasn't building anything. He wasn't investing in a community. He wasn't staying in one place long enough to have a relationship that got past the small talk phase. He wasn't building a skill. He was just consuming experiences.
And consumption, by definition, leaves nothing behind. It burns the fuel, but builds no engine.
He realized that a life of pure novelty is actually incredibly hollow because it lacks continuity. It lacks the compounding effect of staying in one place and building something that lasts. He realized that 50 superficial experiences are worth way less than one deep compounded experience.
That brings us to the deepest part of the dive. We've stripped away the admin time, we've identified the traps, we've looked at the math. Now we have to talk about the obligation, the moral imperative.
This is where we pivot from how do I be productive to why am I here?
The source argues that we need to think about death a lot, like daily.
Most of our culture is designed to hide death. We sanitize it, we put it in hospitals, we don't talk about it at dinner parties, we distract ourselves with entertainment so we don't have to hear the clock ticking.
But the source says we distract ourselves to forget we are dying, but we only truly feel alive when we are doing things meaningful enough to make us realize how precious and transitory the moment is.
That's the great paradox. Think about the most vivid moments of your life. Holding your child for the first time, saying goodbye to a loved one at an airport, a moment of perfect clarity out in nature. Why are they vivid?
Because you know they end.
Because the scarcity is palpable. If you lived forever, holding your child wouldn't matter because you could do it 1,000,000,000,000 times more. Death gives life its texture. It gives it value.
And this leads to the idea that consciousness isn't just a biological accident. It's a responsibility.
Look at the universe. As far as we know, for billions of light years in every direction, it is dead rock, gas, and vacuum. Dead silence. And then there is us, on this one little wet rock. We have the ability to feel, to reason, to create art, to love, to plan for the future. We are the universe waking up and looking at itself. That is the rarest gift in existence.
So wasting it isn't just unproductive. It's almost a cosmic crime.
It is a squandering of the most precious resource there is. If you believe that consciousness is a gift, then you have a moral duty not to spend your 15 years of free will in a dopamine-induced coma, scrolling through videos of people dancing.
You have a duty to honor the gift, to build those immortality projects, to leave the campsite better than you found it.
Exactly. The question isn't how can I have the most fun? The question is how can I justify the space I take up? How can I make sure that when my 15 years are up, I use them to add value to the stream of life?
That is heavy, but it's also incredibly empowering. It raises the stakes of a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that how you spend your hour is how you spend your life.
It makes every decision matter. It turns the mundane into the meaningful.
So we've covered a massive amount of ground here. Let's try to synthesize this for the listener. If they want to retake control of their 15 years, what are the actionable steps?
Step 1. Accept the math. You do not have 80 years. You have 15 years of discretionary capital. Treat it with the panic and respect it deserves. Stop saying, I have time. You don't.
Step 2. Recognize the currency. Money is a derivative. Time is the asset. Never trade a significant amount of the asset for the derivative unless it buys you freedom.
Don't take the commute for the 15% raise. Don't buy the house that turns you into a janitor.
Step 3. Audit for compounding. Look at your habits. Are they depositing value into your future, or are they debt?
Build that philosophical retirement account. Focus on health, deep relationships, and skills. Avoid the anti-compounding traps of addiction, status games, and empty novelty. Ask yourself, does this activity widen my world or narrow it?
And finally, use death as a compass.
Don't run from it. Use the scarcity to filter the noise. If you knew this was your last year, would you still be worried about that email? Would you still be arguing on Twitter?
Probably not.
Then stop doing it now.
I want to leave the listener with a challenge. We talked about the admin of life, the inescapable stuff, but I want you to look at the escapable stuff.
Do a mental audit. Right now.
If you stripped away everything in your life today that doesn't compound, the status signaling, the mindless scrolling, the drama, the things you do just to kill time, what would be left?
Would you recognize your own life? Or would it look surprisingly empty?
If it looks empty, that's okay. That's the wake-up call. You still have time on the clock, but you have to stop killing it.
Pick one thing today, one loop, break it, delete the app, call the friend, go for the run.
Because remember, You only have 15 years.
And the meter is running.
Make it count. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.